Okay guys, so welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to do an edit with T to the M to the I D D. And if you saw my last one, you know that I said I started out using GIMP as my primary editing tool, just as a hobbyist, and learning the ropes before paying for an actual service. So what I'm going to do is get into a raw photo edit inside of GIMP and have you all follow along with me if you are using GIMP. And some folks, if you aren't, they still have tools inside of GIMP that are similar to Photoshop and Lightroom, and the list goes on. So here I am, just dropped the raw file into the GIMP software, and so it is attempting to open it, and let's see how long that takes. So my raw files are about 39 to 42 megabytes per one, shooting on the Nikon D800. And so if you look here, you can already see darktable. So what happens is GIMP is typically used for JPEGs. And so if you want to edit a raw file inside of GIMP, you have to add this extension, which is darktable. So once you drop the file in, darktable will pop up, and then all you do is exit out of that. And once you exit out of that, then GIMP will continue to do its thing and start to upload the raw file .nef inside of the GIMP platform. And so you can see here we actually have our photo. And so I know a lot of people ask, is your photos really unedited? And 100% true. I take the JPEG and just throw it right into my videos that I put on YouTube. So here I have a raw file that I am going to edit, and I'm actually going to post this on my page. So I'm going to edit this for you all, show you my typical workflow, and show you how I get down. So you see to the right hand side, we have layers. And so GIMP is all based on layers. And so we are going to build our layers, and the first thing I kind of do is look and see. So now you have to bring this image back. So one thing I always do is double click and duplicate these layers, and I always hide this layer so that I can have a before and after look. So if you see around here, the image is a little dark. So what I want to try to do is I want to try to bring that up just a little bit. So what I'm going to go to is go to colors, and I'm going to go to curves. And so these are about my midtones, where her skin is. So I'm going to go right in the middle of this 45-degree angle. The higher end is the highlights, the middle end is the midtones, and the lower end of the spectrum is the shadows. So I'm going to go in the midtones, and I'm going to play with this and bring it up just a little bit. And I think that right there will be good. Now I'm going to go to my shadows because this is looking a little on the dark side. So let's bring the shadows up just a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna bring it down just a smidge, and I'm actually happy with that. And so just immediately I see her face is kind of popping out with a little bit of light. So I'm going to go to my highlights and I want to bring those down just a little bit and see if we can get any difference. And so, you always want to be careful with this because if you go too dramatic, you get something like this. So you always want to be very, very careful when you play with the adjustment curve. So we are going to go back to our subtle change. And so you see, if I bring this up, kind of makes the skin pop a little bit. But what I want to do is just bring it slightly down. And I'm actually happy about right there. Now, that is the first step. So that, most of the time I always merge my layers. So I can call this uh, adjustment curve. And so you'll see that a lot. I'll always continue to merge the layer. So now, still looking a little bit too light, so I'm going to go to my exposure and I'm going to bring this up just a little bit. And let's see. I think that is actually pretty good for right now. Now, next thing, add another layer. I'm telling you, I end up with so many layers. You can do multiple things, but that's just kind of how I flow. So I'm still seeing some shadows. So let's go into the shadows, and I'm gonna kick it up about 25. Well, let's try about 50, and a lot of it is kind of you go to the highest range, go to the lowest range, and kind of see what it does. So I'm actually happy with the shadows about right there. And so what I'll do right here, right click and click merge the layers. And so we can do a little sneak peek from where we started. Started right there, and now we are right here. Okay, so now if we keep going, the next thing that I'm looking at is the actual contrasting. So I'm going to go to colors and I'm going to go to brightness and contrast. And I normally start with something low, so something like 0.15, and let's see, could take it up just a little bit more, and let's see, something like that I am actually happy with. Okay, so that's the contrast. Now I'm going to work on the color temperature of this photo. So I'm going to go to colors again, color temperature, and it's at 6500. So if you go down, then this will actually give you a little bit more warmth in your photo. So my target area most of the time is about 5800. So I just kind of go there automatically and I see what does it look like. And so, this right here for me, maybe a little bit too warm. So go up to 59 and let's see, I'll just make it 6,000 even. and I'm perfectly fine with that. Okay, and now the next thing that I'm looking at, I'm still kind of looking to see what can be done to bring some of the thing details out within her skin. So we're going to go to colors, and we're going to go to saturation, and we take a little bit. So actually going to do the reverse and take a little bit of saturation out first, and now I'm going to go the opposite way and see how does it look. Sometimes if you have too much saturation, it makes the photo look too fake. So you gotta kind of watch that. Okay, so now we're going to right click and merge these layers again. Now, um, what I'm going to do is we're going to do a quick preview again. And so that was where we started, and that's where we are now. Okay, so going to add another layer. And so what I'm going to do is actually grab my healing tool. So my healing tool is very important to understand these settings over here to the left. Mainly the most important one is the brush. So click here, and the hardness of the brush, 25, 50, 75, and then 100. So when I use 100, it's when I completely want blemishes gone. So I'm going to zoom in on her face, and what I'm going to do is going to change the size of my brush by clicking over here. And what I'm going to do is press Control and left click on the mouse, and then that blemish is gone. Same thing. And I always uh, get a different population, so I always press Control in a different area, so that the color tones can actually align with the skin, and I don't have to do too much changing. So I wouldn't want to grab a collection from right there and then try to fix that. I wouldn't do that, because these are more on the shadows, these are more on the highlights, so it's just kind of messy at that point. And so she doesn't have many blemishes, and if you see that, um, that's kind of good, save you some work. But then also, I'm not like trying to get rid of every little blemish, because at the end of the day, you still want some texture. You still want some texture. Okay, so now that we have done that, the next thing that we're going to do is add another layer, and we are going to go to the colors, and we are going to go to the brightness. Now, I'm going to play with the brightness just a little bit. And let's see, think about right there. That's good. So we're going to add some brightness to the photo. And what I want to do now is actually go and add a layer inside of the curves. So inside of the curves, you see she has these nice, beautiful eyes, and you want to pop those out. And so what I do is I do dodge and burn, but I do it with curves. So what I'll do is click colors and then click curves. And so the first thing I'll do is go to the highlights section, and for this purpose, I'll probably do it a little extreme. So maybe like something up there, and then I'll click OK. And then on this layer, go to this right side, right click, and press add layer mask. And then you want to click black full opacity and click add. So then it basically reverses what you did. But then if you go over to the paintbrush tool, and this is where I say you have to be very, very careful about which type of hardness you want to pick, because then you're going to click the brush and you're going to go back down to a 25 hardness. And so when you go in here, you're going to want to bring your brush down, and this still might look subtle, but it's the combination of all the things that you do with a photo. And you could just see it's the combination of everything you do with the photo that will basically add together and make it pop. So now I will merge that down. Okay, so now when I merge that down, we are going to do a quick look. Okay, so we were right here, and now we are right here. So you can just see how those eyes pop out more just from this edit so far. So I'm going to add another layer, and what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to go back in with the same technique. However, I'm going to click colors and go to curves again, but I'm going to go to the shadows. And so here the key goal is to make these eyelashes pop out and her eyebrows pop out. So I'm going to go here, and I think that is dramatic enough for me. So I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to right click that layer, and I'm going to click add layer mask. And so now what I am going to do is go back to my paintbrush tool, and I'm still going to have 25 hardness, and I have a small brush size. I'm going to take it back up to maybe 20. But here, if you notice, when you brush it, it's still soft. So that's nice. So we're going to cover this whole area, okay? And then we're going to do the same thing for this eyebrow. Now, you can kind of see where an outline is kind of made, like right there. You can kind of see that. So what you can do in your case, if it's a little bit harsher, then you can come over to this right side and turn the opacity down, and then you can actually control that. So that's a nice good tip. When I go down to these eyebrows, I'm going to get an even smaller brush and try to go over the lashes. And like this is actually time consuming, but it's really in the details that makes your photo pop, and people can tell, just by adding these a- and taking the time to go and do a brush over each lash like that individually is really, the key. And so we're going to do the same thing over here. And we're going to just try to get everything, make them pop out a little bit more. Okay. So, and then try to get a little bit of what is on the bottom. So, you can see those a little bit. Okay. Now we could pull those out, and I'll actually take a larger brush and uh, go actually over like here. And that is good. So then I'll merge that down. And actually we'll do a quick checkup to see where we are. Okay, so we're from right here to right here. And that is good so far. Now, what we are going to do now is actually add another layer. And this really doesn't need it, but a lot of people like it. So I typically add it. So I'll click filters and go to blur, and then go to Gaussian blur. Now, depending on what if I'm trying to fix something, like maybe if this was like a armpit and I wanted to like blur out, the underarm hair or things like that, I would click filters, blur, and then click median blur. And that will do like a median average of the whole area where it blends a little bit smoother. This is just a blur in itself, Gaussian blur, which is a popular blur. And so if I just increase this to about 3.4, yeah, you don't need much at all. 3.4, click OK. And same technique, is going to be a mask. So we're going to add a layer mask. Click OK, and we are going to go back to our infamous paintbrush, and we're still going to stay at a 25 hardness, because with this you really want this to be soft. So I'll go to my opacity, and I'll probably even click this to be about 50. And so I'll have some light areas, so probably like the forehead and going into the hairline and just the bridge of the nose. Um, and then typically we'll have like this jawline, and that is fine. And that's all I would do on the face, because she doesn't have too many blemishes. But for the hand, I will kind of add a little bit of blurriness, even though they are not really in focus to begin with. So it's not really a problem. Okay, so now I'll merge those. And so let's take a look at where we started and where we are now. And so what I think I want to do is I want to go to the colors, and I want to go to the contrast. So, well, not contrast. I want to go to, no, I do want to go to contrast. Sorry, I do want to go to contrast. I want to go to contrast, and I want to put a little bit of contrast on here, and that would be perfect. That's good enough for me. So let's merge this down. We're good to go, and we'll see where we started and where we are now, and just look how, like, those small details, pay attention to the eyebrows, the eyelashes, the eyes. um, Makes a big difference. And so let's just watch this transformation. It's definitely, and you can see the blemishes, some of them disappear. And I think it's important to keep some because it keeps it realistic. Now, some people actually like to, just go all out and remove all blemishes and all skin. And, it's your art. So, it's really, to each his own. Me, I kind of, take some of the more noticeable blemishes and keep some just so that I do have some texture to work with. And so for me, this would be pretty much a photo I would post. I see a few more things that can be done. For example, I would go here and click the heart. Uh, and I see like this spot right here. So, I would, touch up those things. And that will be pretty much the main focus right there. But beyond that, I will pretty much take this photo and for a pretty pretty good photo that I would post to my page. This would definitely be some of the touch-ups that I will make. So I hope that if you use GIMP, that this was helpful for you. I hope that if you don't use GIMP, that and you are trying to see which editing softwares that you can use, that you might want to consider using this. However, I will say in my experience that GIMP is a little more, a little harder to use. But when you transition, if you transition to something else, like for myself it was Lightroom, Photoshop, things like that, using those softwares were so much more easier that from me using GIMP, I actually appreciated it because it was like I had to learn so much to use GIMP that when I did transfer to using a different software, it was so much easier. I had no problem. So, those are pluses and minuses for using GIMP to start. So, this is your boy T Med, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll be having a lot more to come. So, stick with me. Make sure you hit that like button, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification bell. It's your boy T-Man. I'm out. Peace.